For just a moment, bear with me here. There is a method to my madness. Let's talk about divorce. Some of you, your parents got divorced. How did it make you feel if you were a kid when your parents got divorced? Some of you are parents who got divorced. You saw the effect on your kids. What was it like? I'm very fortunate. My parents are in their 80s, still together, headed to, near their 60th anniversary, I guess. My wife and I will this October be married 25 years. My wife's mom died when she was in first grade. Her dad remarried after that, and her parents have now been married for quite a long time. So my parents haven't been divorced, but I have friends whose parents were divorced, and I saw the fallout of those kids, and I knew I never wanted my parents to get divorced. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, of course. There are some people who it's a sad situation. I've actually got a very dear friend of mine who his mother was just a horrible, horrible alcoholic and started cheating on her husband, and it was just a terrible thing, and she walked out in the middle of the night and left him. And the dad wasn't an extraordinary father, but certainly became one, having to keep his family together. And there are, like, my friend who that happened to says it was actually for the good that his mother left. And I've got friends who the same thing, the father left. But they're the exceptions. Overwhelmingly, it is a child whose parents divorced. They never want to go through it themselves. And you see it as someone from a family that there was no divorce. You can see it. Now, why do I bring that up relating to tariffs of all things? Erickson, what are you doing here? Because I want you to understand that there are things you yourself don't experience, but you can see the consequences of the actions of when it goes the other way. So your parents may not have gotten a divorce, but you know so many people whose parents did, and you see the ramifications of the divorce. You might have gone through the divorce and you see the ramifications. We as a country are essentially setting up a policy here, for better or worse, that divorces us from a lot of the global supply chain and our leadership in the world. Donald Trump is essentially signaling we're done with American leadership of the world. We're going to leave the world behind, and we're going to take care of our people first. It will be America first. And my personal view here is that for the people who say, for example, we've been the piggy bank of the world, we've been taken advantage of by the world, the world is screwing us, that they've cost us jobs and the like, you have the luxury of saying that by not experiencing the other side of the equation. For those of you who believe the cost of American leadership in the world is too great, you've been very lucky that you haven't had to experience the cost of our lack of leadership in the world. And I'm afraid the day is coming, if we continue down this path, where you're going to, and when you get there, you're not going to like it, and it's going to be largely irreversible. Here's what you get that you don't feel right now. You get the greatest exchange rate on planet Earth. The bulk of all world trade is conducted in dollars. And that means when your dollar goes out into the globe to buy something, you get the best rate on it. So your products are cheaper. You get a lot of products that are very cheap. Donald Trump complains about our wipeout of the manufacturing base in this country. But do you really need to buy the T-shirt that's made in the United States when you can get one cheaper from Vietnam and then have money left over to buy something else? J.D. Vance a couple of months ago said the American dream doesn't involve buying cheap toasters. Actually, yeah, it sure as hell does involve buying a cheap toaster from Vietnam so that you have more money to spend on your kids' private education or your kids' college or to buy a better car or to buy a better house. Buying the cheap toaster frees up your resources to buy other stuff. It's not just the mercantilist capitalist equation, though, because where do you put your money? You can put your money to charity. You can put your money to your kids' education. You can put your money to your own house. You can put your money to other things that you have if you buy the cheap toaster instead of the expensive toaster. And we get to buy the cheapest toasters on the planet because we lead the world. Our global interest rates are better here. Go to Great Britain to buy a house. Go to Europe to buy a house. Your interest rate's going to be higher than it is here. Your interest rate here is cheaper than there because the world trades in dollars. The dollar is the reserve currency of planet Earth. Virtually every country on the earth will accept a dollar instead of their own currency because the dollar is so well accepted. China, Russia, Iran, South Africa, Brazil, the BRIC nations, and a number of others are working very hard with a lot of countries to get them to ditch the American currency as the global reserve currency. The global reserve currency means that countries buy American dollars to protect themselves from economic calamity. If they sell their American dollars, that not only devalues the American dollar, but it makes it harder for you to travel the world. It makes it far more expensive for you to travel around the planet. It makes it more expensive for you to get an interest rate. It makes you more expensive to do an exchange rate around the world. All those sorts of things that happen when you get rid of the reserve currency of the United States. We have the American dollar as the reserve currency because we lead the world. Think about SWIFT banking transactions. You know how we're very good at stamping out terrorism around the world? We're very good. We're not perfect. Terror plots still happen, things like that. But the SWIFT exchange, so many bank processing, because we're the world's reserve currency, the dollar is so respected, much of the world transacts its business in dollars, and those transactions flow through the United States, allowing our federal government to snoop on global transactions. And in many cases, we've been able to uncover plots against us and our partners through the SWIFT banking transactions. We've been able to uncover transfers of money that raised red flags. We've been able to uncover global money laundering schemes, global human trafficking efforts, things like that. The reserve currency goes away. Our leadership in the world goes away. The SWIFT system collapses. Countries trade in other ways. They route through China instead. Not only does it make us more vulnerable for national security concerns, it makes us more vulnerable on the world stage. It makes it more expensive for you to travel abroad. We also get great access around the world by being the world leader. You can go anywhere on the planet virtually with very few exceptions, and people are going to treat you well because you are the leader of the world. There was a time when I was a kid living overseas where terrorism was a big thing, particularly Islamic extremists in the 1980s targeting Americans. Given my dad is Swedish, he's American, but his parents are Swedish. There were times when my parents told me, tell people you're Swedish. You got the last name Erickson, tell people you're Swedish. But mostly, you wanted people to know you were an American because it meant something. After World War II, the entire world was in shambles except for us. And the Western world order realigned to put us in charge. And we realigned the Western world order to benefit us. If we decide it's too expensive for us to continue to lead the world, and we step aside, the entire global economic, monetary, and even trade systems realign against us. China's trying to do this. We're making it very easy with these tariffs. You think it's expensive right now. You ain't seen nothing yet. Look at Great Britain. Great Britain used to be the largest empire on the planet. The British Empire was so big the sun never set on it. And what they meant by that saying the sun never sets on the British Empire was it controlled so much of the world that it was always sunrise, always daylight somewhere in the world in a territory the British controlled. The British Empire collapsed. Britain is still a developed nation, but it's turned inward on itself. Its inflation is higher than ours. Its banking costs are higher than ours. Its trade costs are higher than ours. All of the costs of doing business are higher for the British than for us because we now lead the world. It used to all benefit them. And now it benefits us. And if you've decided that the costs of global leadership are too high because the military engagements we have, because of the trade deals we have, what have you, you think this is expensive. It's like not understanding the ramifications of a divorce. When you divorce yourself from that, you're going to experience something and you're not going to get back what you had. I hear, for example, the Trump administration says all the time, and Trump supporters say all the time, that, well, we've given up our manufacturing base, so they've screwed us out of good jobs in this country. No, they actually haven't. Our poor in this country are still wealthier than the poor in other countries. That's something that you don't see because you don't travel the world and see it. But poor Americans in Mississippi and in Appalachia are wealthier than the poor in Southeast Asia and even the middle class in Southeast Asia. You say we don't have good jobs in this country. Actually, our jobs have transitioned in this country. No, we don't make T-shirts in this country anymore. We don't. We grow the cotton and export it abroad, and they make the T-shirts. We don't make the TVs in this country anymore. We buy them from abroad. But you know what we make? We make world-class weapon systems. We now build data centers, and we make information. We don't just find information. We create information. We have a services economy because we're an advanced nation. Advanced nations can outsource their manufacturing to other countries. Now, that's not to say there's not some we should have here. We should have pharmaceuticals here. We should have microchips here. We should have things like that here. But do we really need to buy our underwear made in America, our coffee cups, our toasters, our TVs? Do we really need to? Because if so, what you're saying is that you want to pay higher prices for those things because they can't be made as cheaply here as abroad. And once you've started settling into our clothes should be more expensive and our TVs should be more expensive and our homes should be more expensive, you're going to have less money. Even when your wages go up, companies are still going to make a profit, so your wages aren't going to go up as much. You're still going to have less take home once you've bought all these things. Trump supporters talk about the cost of global leadership. I would encourage them to consider the benefits of global leadership. And once you've given up that global leadership, you're not going to get it back, or you're going to be hard to get it back. Don't give up leadership and then realize that was a mistake. And I'm afraid there are a lot of people who are selling this fantasy of we can be so much wealthier and better off if we abandon the world for ourselves. We are, as the wealthiest nation on the planet. You may not feel it, but you are. Congratulations. You live in the wealthiest planet on the earth. China is number 2, and it's behind us significantly. And you don't feel it, and you feel like everyone's taking advantage of you. They're not taking advantage of you. You're richer than them. You may not feel like it because you're looking at other Americans who've gotten ahead, and you're jealous of the other Americans, and you think, why am I not getting ahead and they are? Well, it must be the people abroad. No, it's because of domestic policies here at home, not trade and global policies. It's because the Democrats have screwed you, and even some Republicans have screwed you with policies here at home that protect Goliath and keep David from growing. Those are the policies we should be targeting, not the global economic system that places us at the center of it. We are at the center of the global economic system with spokes going out in directions connecting us to all other countries with all of their stuff flowing here. You break that wheel, you're not going to put it back together again. And Donald Trump seems intent on breaking the wheel, thinking that we'll have something better. You know what comes with a broken wheel? Inertia and lack of progress and friction and high costs. And that's not going to be good for us.